off of only $9,000 a year. And then for the rest of the United States, the average per capita income is $27,334. So you see the great difference. And so obviously they're living in very impoverished third world conditions. A lot of people on Pine Ridge do not have running water. They do not have electricity. The poverty rate on Pine Ridge is 48.3%. The rest of the United States is 13.8%. Life expectancy on Pine Ridge is 66.6 years, and then for the rest of the United States, 76.5. The infant mortality rate per 1,000 births on Pine Ridge is 18.4, and for the United States, 6.4. So you see these figures are drastically different. Liver disease, I had mentioned alcoholism, it is pretty strong there. Liver disease death per 100,000 in Pine Ridge is 121.3, and in the United States, 9.7. Life there is very difficult. There is a lot of teen suicides, and the suicide per 100,000 on Pine Ridge is 37.2, and for the rest of the United States, it's 10.9%. So you see, these are staggering results. These are staggering. When I first read this article, I know, I'm familiar, I've been there, I know the struggle there. But to actually read it in black and white on paper hit me even harder than before. And so when I shared with both Dr. Desmond and Marta Benavides, us coming together to talk about these things is very important because, as citizens of this country, we should not be allowing this kind of drastic, different way of living. We all have the same freedoms. Unfortunately, we don't all have all the same opportunities. But there's a way to make a difference. And in order for this world to be a better place, we all need to get involved and we all need to do our part, even if it's the smallest thing. I have a friend who wrote a letter to President and Mrs. Obama. She wrote to the Senate on Indian Affairs, and she wrote to our state representatives after she read this article. And as part of this action committee we hope to form today, I would like that to be the first thing that we do is we all sign, we all write a letter to these committees who are getting paid thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to represent and to work on behalf of Native people here in America. And so my question to them is, what are you doing? What are you doing? And out of Washington, D.C., what are you doing to work toward reducing these numbers that I just shared with you? This next one is a smile on our faces from Arlette Loud.
Well, I talk a lot about trauma, sadness, killing, but the beauty of it all is knowing I am a healing. And to every Lakota, we're strong people. And no matter how much hardship we go through, the sparkle in our eyes will still be there. The smile on our faces will still be there. Even if we have great hardship.
powerful. She was a young girl who, shared with us and spoke from her heart. I talked about a healing process that has now overcome the people. You talked about the girl, all we want is peace. Every weekend, their elders get together and have ceremonies. We have ceremonies that, and like I said, my family was struggling with alcoholism, and it was going back to those traditional ways that has attributed to them staying sober and staying in recovery. When I first left the reservation, we were kind of walking both worlds, the Christian world, the Christian path and the Lakota path. And it was a difficult time. And after 1978, when people were, the Freedom of Religious Act was enacted, Native people could openly practice their traditional ceremonies and rituals. But prior to that, you could be arrested, you could be jailed. And this is just 1978. When this change occurred. So Native people, their cultural ways of being was eradicated, and they were forced to assimilate. It was not something that you could, like maybe your ancestors came over here to America as immigrants, that they willingly decided to give up maybe some of their ways and be a certain way to follow this American dream. Native people, indigenous people of this country did not have a choice. They were forcibly removed from their reservations, put in boarding schools, and assimilated. About an hour and 15 minutes from here is Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And there's the very first experiment, the very first education experiment for Native people in this country happened right there, an hour and 15 minutes away. In 1876 to 1918, it was in operation for about 40-year period, somewhere around there. And Native children were forcibly removed and put there, and it was all part of an experiment. And a lot of children died, and their remains are still at in Carlisle, which is now the Army War College. So you could go there yourself, and you could request a tour from the Cumberland County Historical Society. I have a good friend of mine who gives the tours there. There are a lot of buildings that still stand from the school when it closed in 1918. But again, that was the very first boarding school experiment, educational experiment for indigenous people in this country. There's a video that I want to play for you, and it's about the Sundance ceremony. This is one of our sacred ceremonies. Okay, I talked about teen suicide.
We have scheduled vigils so we can help the young people deal with the death of custody.